Hello, I'm Erin Marcus, founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business, and I want to welcome you to Ready Yet? If all you needed was a step-by-step plan of what to do, you could buy a book on how to succeed and you would be all set. But here's the rub. You'll never do what it takes until you become the person it takes to do it. The Ready Yet podcast is dedicated to those who are ready to become the person who succeeds, ready to become the person who steps into more, and ready to become the best version of themselves. In the I'm Ready interview series, join me for inspiring conversations with people who figured out who they needed to be in order to achieve their dreams, and were brave enough to be that person. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I'm so excited to bring you stories of people who are in the process of figuring out who they have to be in order to achieve the things they want to achieve. And I really want to give a warm welcome to my guest today, Kati Pauls, because you might have met her husband a few weeks ago, Alex, but let's face it, we're getting the brains behind the business in this one, right? We're getting the artistry, the brilliance. And I met Kati and Alex several months ago at a networking event. And, we made googly eyes across a crowded Zoom room at each other. I'm like, I like these people. And since then, we've been working together. They've been doing amazing things. And I love how just open they are. And I know you will get a lot of hearing Kati's story. So Kati, why don't you give everyone a little more official introduction of who you are and what it is that you do?
Sure. Okay. And I'm telling Alex what you said, by the way.
But all right. He knows.
So I'm Kati. I'm the other half of KP Design. I've been doing this for 20 years. I have a bachelor degree in music, and then at one point realized I dislike working with children. So I pivoted to, getting in front of a computer and working with adults. And yeah, so I've been doing this a long time. Alex came on board a few years ago, and then we decided we wanted to grow the business and met you, and poof,
here we go. Yeah, I mean, absolutely beautiful websites, beautiful logos. I think I understand that music is not the same as what you're doing now, but I do think you either have that artistic gene or you're me. And you I get it, own your strengths. So
interesting, because it's not just art, right? You're also using, even in music, there's math involved. So you're using both sides of your brain. And it's the same with web development, because I started old school with HTML and CSS. And when I was little, my dad had a Texas Instruments. So I was 10 years old, if that, and I took out the book and I'm adding in all these numbers and there's colors popping up. And so I kind of have always wanted to do something like that. And this really gives me the best of both worlds.
Nice. I'll age myself. I used to work with my dad as well on occasion, but it was literally with one of those old adding machines where you pull the levers. Slightly different childhood. But
how much do we date ourselves if we have an abacus?
Right, exactly. At least I'm not there, right? At least I'm not there. Awesome. So I'm just going to jump into some questions because I know enough about your story to one of the things that I absolutely admire about you is how open you are to the challenges that you're having, and at the same time, being committed to solving it. You know how to ride the wave. You know how to ride the wave of today's a good day, today's not a good day. So what are the things, as you've been, because in the last couple of years, once Alex joined you, you've really been in this growth spurt. What are some of the things that have just thrown you that you didn't see coming?
What has thrown me? I think that the idea of growing the business, for one, really threw me, because I've always been very happy just keeping it personal and small. And I think playing small for me was just my safety zone.
Sure.
Right. And Alex coming on board all of a sudden made me play bigger. So that was horrifying and something that I had to work through. But as I'm catching up to that, it's like, no, I can play big. I can do this. Also being responsible for somebody else, even though I'm married to him, this is still a working relationship. So am I giving these instructions clearly? Am I giving him enough time to do things? There's this whole other piece that I just never had to think of for myself.
Absolutely. And I love how you said you were surprised by getting thrown about needing to play bigger. And I think that's one of the things that happens. I hate the word comfort zone because it implies that it's comfortable, and it's
Right.
not always the case. It's not
Yeah,
always the case.
I'm rarely comfortable.
Right, right. But you tell yourself, this is okay. This is great. This is fine. This is enough. And you were lucky in that you had this external, literally another human being who said to you, come on, come on. But sometimes you also have to find that in yourself.
It's true. It doesn't matter how many times he tells me, you're so good at this and everything you do is magic. I'm like, yeah, but when I was like 40 pounds heavier, you told me I was so amazing. Look at me.
You
I'm
were
like,
amazing. You were amazing.
So it's totally different when you hear it from somebody else. So playing bigger for me means opening myself up to coaching, right? So having a coach tell you, no, you know what, you need to step out of your way and start thinking this way is very different from hearing your husband tell you to do the same thing.
That's very true. And you guys do a great job. And I always say back when I was married, we could never go to the gym together because we wouldn't listen to each other, right? But if somebody else came along and told me how I should be lifting, what I should be doing, then it was perfectly fine. But yeah, absolutely. Having that external voice that can be a cheerleader and help you keep going. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's flip it. What has been something that has surprised you in a really positive way? When I left corporate, I'll give you my example. I don't know if you know this. When I left corporate, I was terrified of working on my own. I have a very collaborative nature, and I knew my best ideas were not going to come from sitting in my office with my cat, right? And so networking for me was the magic I never expected. I didn't know that world existed, and that was like my big cherry on top. So what for you has been just like, wow, I didn't see that coming. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah, for me, it was the fact that he stepped into the roles that I was always so afraid to do. I would do them, but it would take an emotional and creative toll on me. Like my energy would be depleted. So now he does a good amount of the networking. He does a good amount of the meetings with people. And that stuff I'll do it, but it's not what lights me up. So it's really nice to have that part of my job filled by someone else.
Well, and what you're telling people though is a perfect thing. I don't want someone to think like, I don't have a spouse in my business. Oh my God. So freaking hire for what doesn't light you up.
Yep.
The faster you can get to that point where you're in your genius zone and he's in his, or your assistants in theirs, right? That, because now you're in your positive energy so much more frequently.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. And you know what? It's just nice to have somebody else to share the ups and downs with. Before I would get stuck on something and be like, oh, I have no one to go to.
Oh my
But
gosh,
now,
right?
even just as a sounding board, right? Even if he can't solve it or if he's not quite understanding, just hearing him say it back to me, say, okay, yes, this makes sense now. It's nice to have.
So I understand you didn't want to work with children, and I totally get that. Love my nieces, love my nephew, love playing with other people's kids. You have great kids, but working with kids is different. What made you go from a situation where you were having a job to being an entrepreneur?
I've kind of always been an entrepreneur. I mean, I did music my whole life. And then by 15, I'm like, you know what? I can teach this.
Nice.
So at 15 years old, I set up my own studio. I didn't go and join somebody else's studio. I built my own. It was out of my parents' house in my room. And so, and then from there, I mean, I've never really had a real corporate job. I've always kind of been an entrepreneur. So yeah, it's just, I guess I was born with it.
Right? It's awesome because there's a mentality, and it explains a lot when I see you go for things. There's just a mentality of not waiting to ask permission for something and needing to create it. And maybe that's just another creative outlet that you have.
Yeah. And you know what? It's always, for me, it's been to have that mentor, to have that person who can guide you. And when I find somebody, man, I hold on and everything out of their mouth is gold and I'm so coachable. But I think that the difference between then and now is that I have discernment. So even though I love and respect you, I take what you say and I feel how it feels inside me. So I'm like, is this exactly what I need to do right now? Or is there a little bit of tweaking that has to be done so that it works perfectly for me?
Well, and that, I think that's the key, because the goal is not to become me. That doesn't help you. It's a completely different business. We're different people. And I think that's a really good point when you're working with somebody. I also think it's the reason, and it's just one of my soapboxes, that when you hire for tactics, it doesn't work. When you buy a script, when somebody's saying, just do this one thing, it doesn't work because it's not you.
You can't lose you in the process. And that's so easy to do. You get overwhelmed by this and that, and you're like, oh, and then you kind of get lost, you know? So every once in a while, it's good just to sit with the advice and think about, how does this feel? How does it make me feel? Like, let me vision what the result is and then work backwards a bit.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I know I really enjoy having conversations about who you need to be in order to reach new heights. As founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business, I work with my clients at the intersection where what they need to do to succeed meets who they need to be to do it. If you would like to have a conversation about your business, please reach out to me at erin@conqueryourbusiness.com.
So I'll ask you this, because I love that you do that. And I think it's a really, really important point. So how do you discern between knowing what's right for you and your subconscious telling you a story to stop you from moving forward?
Right. So I think the secret to that is time, because you'll say something to me, it'll be a piece of advice, and I'm reactive, and I can hear that voice, saying,
and I can see it on your face,
right?
when it happens.
And then it's swear, right? And then I unmute. I'm like, oh yeah, that was good advice, Erin. I have to let it sit. So I let my inner voice, blah blah blah, all this horrible stuff, and then it's like, okay, whoa, let's back this up. Let's take out the ego and just sit with it for a second.
Well, and also, and I do this with my coach also, and I feel we have this relationship, so hopefully you do too. There's a level of trust. I might not give you the best advice for you from a personality, but you definitely know, you have to tweak it and make it yours, but you have to work with somebody. And I even go back to this with what you do for your clients. You have to know that the person you've chosen to work with has your best interest. And I know that you have that with your clients, that you get very frustrated when someone is not letting you be your genius on their behalf.
Right. Yeah, and that's tricky, because then that comes back to me as like, is this the wrong client? Where did I miss that flag? Right? When you sit down with that person and try and figure it out, where did I miss that flag that this is not the right client for me? So this is something that I've been working a lot on, is when I sit down for these meetings, making sure I watch for those flags.
And what you're saying without saying it is how much more comfortable you are saying no to somebody, or not making an offer, or not choosing to work with someone who isn't aligned.
Right. And it's not going to work for them either. It's also in their best interest for me to be able to tell if it's a good fit.
Right.
Otherwise, they're going to be very frustrated with me taking over everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and knowing when you need to walk away and when you need to just help someone get through their nerves, because what you do for folks is probably, they don't realize how scary it is, but you are creating the face of their business to the world. Their friends are going to see it. It's not even just about the money they will or won't make with their business and how professional they will or won't look, but it's their family's going to see it. Their friends are going to see it, especially if they left corporate. Their former colleagues are going to see it.
Yeah, it's a big deal to put yourself out there. And A lot of people think they know what they want, and then they kind of don't when it comes to how they want to be presented. And so what I do is, and this is going to be a little bit on the woo side, is that I'm able just to get a little bit more intuitive with what you're saying but not saying. And I get a feeling. It doesn't take me too long to read your energy and be like, okay, this is what this person is really trying to say. This is what they're trying to say in their graphics and visuals and colors and typography, and then putting that together so that it does reflect them authentically.
And so what have you been able to accomplish when you put this all together, this learning about yourself, learning about being able to discern between what's triggering you versus what's not so great advice for you personally, and when you add that to, okay, this scares me, but I'm going to step into it. I mean, it's been, when you put all those things together, that's when the world shifts.
Yeah. And that's when now I can play big. Yeah. Now I can really own my business. Now I can be influential for clients, and I can be influential for others in my industry. I can be influential to Alex, right? So, I mean, if I can tell these things a little bit, if I can be strong in my role, everything else flows so much better.
And I love how you use the word influence for that, because what you're talking about is, by becoming a better, stronger you are actually of more service to your clients. And one of the things I talk a lot about with my clients is show up as a thought leader versus a vendor, especially in a role where you're working in a genius zone that they don't have.
Right.
Whether or not they know it.
Yeah. And it's made a big difference to step into my power, which has always been, I've struggled with that for forever, like for so long. And it wasn't until I decided that, no, I'm worth doing this for. I have the ability, I need to step up and do this, that everything else is starting to fall into place and things feel right now.
And I think getting a few big wins, that's one thing that, sometimes when I'm on a difficult path, I'm like, I just need a win. It kind of changes everything. It's like sports. I need that win to change that momentum.
And being in your power doesn't mean that you're not going to be afraid still. Every time the possibility of a new client comes to me, I'm still kind of scared, like there's still that little bit of fear about, am I going to deliver? Am I going to be able to read them properly? Is this relationship going to be what we both want it to be? So there's always a little bit of fear. It's just now I'm learning how to react to it, how to control it a little bit better and recover more quickly
and use it. I love to use that nerves to do a better job.
Yep.
Right? It makes you almost overcompensate and do a better job.
Yeah. And then you look back and you're like, I started out a little bit afraid, but I really kicked this thing's ass. I did a good job. But then it'll happen. The next client will come. It's like, oh, here we go.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know that I ever completely want to lose the excitement. You define it as fear. Sometimes it's excitement. It's an opportunity. I don't know that I ever completely want to lose the butterflies.
Yeah.
Because then it just means you don't care anymore.
I think it keeps me humble and a little bit real.
Right. Yeah. And then it does. It's kind of like, you don't care. So if people, like, I know how amazing, talented you are. Tell me though, the website, because it's weird. It's KP Designs.
kpdesign.ca.
kpdesign.ca, because you're in Canada, not the US. You have different extensions. I mean, if anyone just even looks at that, they get an idea of what you're capable of. But what is the best way for folks to have this conversation with you if they are ready to elevate their brand and want some of your magic? What is the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Well, definitely on the website. So we have a little thing that says book a chat with us. You're going to see pictures of Alex and I right away. I used all the bloopers from that professional photo shoot because that's us. We're real. Yep. We're fun. We're funny sometimes. So when you hit that button, that actually goes straight to Alex. So he is your first point of contact. And then we sit down together and you'll meet us both.
And you have a book coming. Well, you have 2 books coming out.
We have 1 book that's out already.
You have 1 book. That's right. You have 1 book that's out already.
Just a little fun little thing. And then we have one that we wrote called Partners in Everything. So we talk about our relationship, our marriage, our very long marriage for us, 22 years, I think, this year. And then how now we're working together and how it's changed the marriage a little bit. And so it'll be interesting.
And that, and that's one of I don't have that in my world. I have a very segmented life without a consistent friend group. Because of that's just the way it developed. So it's one of the things I love watching about you and Alex is because you've been together, let's face it, you're in even before your adult life, you're in since teenagers, and how you have grown together. Everybody changes and everybody transitions to different parts of their lives. And yet you've done yours together.
Yeah, I really lucked out. I really did. I'm so grateful for this soul contract with him because he allows me to step into a power that I feel has been lost for so long. He really is too amazing.
Well, I'm excited for you to, even in the 6 months, however long it's been since we've been working together, I can see the change between what was originally hesitancy. And now it's like, what's next? What's next? Oh my God, I'm freaking out. Okay, what's next? But you just keep going. And so I personally cannot wait to see everything that you do. And I invite people to contact you. And thank you so much for sharing your stories with me, because I know there's other people out there who are feeling those same struggles. And it's great to see people get through it.
For sure. Thanks for having me. Thanks for making me do it.
I made you do it. This is one of them. We made you do it. Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Ready Yet podcast. I get so motivated by the amazing accomplishments of the remarkable people I meet, and I'm excited to be able to share some of their stories with you. You can find more episodes of Ready Yet at your favorite source for podcasts or at conqueryourbusiness.com. And if you've already decided that you are ready to become the person you need to be to achieve your big goals, feel free to reach out to find out how I can support you in your efforts. Or check out the Work with Erin page on the Conquer Your Business website. I also invite you to share this podcast with anyone you know who loves to learn and be inspired. And if you're so inclined, I'd be absolutely grateful for any reviews you'd like to share as well. Thanks again for joining me. This has been Erin Marcus, hopefully inspiring and helping you to go conquer your big dreams.